The great Elizabethan era has come to its end, and it's the dawn of a new age in Britain, that of King Charles III. It's a preordained handover of power that's been 70 years in the making. Charles has waited longer than any other monarch in history for this life-defining, crowning moment. A man of apparent contradiction, he's been described as sensitive and caring, yet stubborn and difficult. Passionate about his people, yet conscious of the need to earn their love. Quiet and introspective, yet opinionated and forthright with his views. A complex character who we've come to know, or at least feel like we know, over the last 7 decades as the Prince of Wales. Now, he is king. So who is this king? Who is the man behind the monarch? And how has his long life as heir to the throne prepared him for this most unique responsibility?
Here is the first picture of His Royal Highness Prince Charles of Edinburgh, second in the line of succession, just 4 weeks old.
It's the 14th of November 1948, and the destiny of this baby boy is set. He will one day rule the land. Grandson of the monarch King George VI and firstborn of the heir Princess Elizabeth, clearly it was a childhood like no other. Just 4 years after his birth, his mother would become queen. When the year of 1952 began, Elizabeth was a young mother of 2 young children, and when it ended, she was a young monarch of a nation still rebuilding itself from the ashes of World War II. Together with her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, she carried out duties across the world, in 1953 touring the Commonwealth for 6 months.
The Queen was the first reigning sovereign to set foot on Australian soil.
On the day after their arrival in New Zealand, the Queen and His Royal Highness attended a youth rally at a park known as Auckland Domain. After the stay in Fiji came the visit to Tonga, and here, as you'd certainly expect, an outstanding welcome was in readiness for the royal travellers.
The young prince was left at home, raised mostly by nannies, eagerly awaiting his parents' return.
They were always good parents, as much as they were allowed to be, but duty was expected of them. They expected to be away on representing the Queen, representing the UK. So they don't lead the sort of lives that we lead when it comes to families. The work comes first.
But it wasn't always a childhood spent listlessly waiting by a window. Prince Charles formed a close bond with his grandmother, the Queen Mother, and when his duty-bound parents did come home, there was fun to be had.
They were wonderful with the children. I mean, we played every game like every parent does. What I saw, he was always there. And their cousins came and the barbecues. It was such a very normal, country, happy childhood.
King Charles is the first monarch to have been educated in a school, his predecessors having had private tuition at home. And he is the first sovereign to have earned himself a university degree. When he was 13, Charles was sent to Gordonston, the ruthless and rustic boarding school in the northeast of Scotland, where pupils started the day with a morning run, come rain, shine, storm or snow, and were greeted with a cold shower on their return. A young Prince Philip had thrived there, and it was his idea that his sensitive son be enrolled and toughened up.
Charles desperately wanted to please his father, desperately wanted to do the right thing and to get his admiration and his praise. And the Duke was a particular sort of man. He was an alpha male. He wanted a son in his own image. And Charles just was never that child.
Charles had a miserable time at Gordonston. He was bullied and found it difficult to make friends. One former classmate recalled the prince being physically attacked during a rugby match. But despite the challenges, it's said that the harshness of the establishment did provoke a stoicism within the young royal, and he graduated with a newfound grit and a steeled backbone. The Gordonston test of Prince Charles's mettle is widely known, but less so is his 6-month stay at Timbertop School, 10,000 miles away in the Australian outback. The 16-year-old prince took on endurance tests, swapping the icy Scottish hills for the blistering desert heat. And he grew in confidence as he found himself flourishing in endurance tests of another kind altogether, that of the royal engagement. It was the first time he had faced crowds at public events without his parents.
The people were so friendly and so welcoming. And I must admit, I'd been apprehensive about going there because I'd heard, that the Australians were critical and would perhaps, show their feelings. And I was worried about how I would appear to them. But I had absolutely no need to worry them after I'd been there an hour.
In 1967, Prince Charles entered yet another non-royal world, this time arriving at Cambridge University's Trinity College. Though the hallowed halls of the ancient university, founded by his ancestor Henry VIII in 1546, are among the most exclusive in the world, it was here that the future king sought normality.
We're putting him in a room the same as the other freshmen, and our whole idea, of course, is to make it normal.
Can I ask you how you treat Prince Charles? Do you treat him as your superior or your junior, as a future undergraduate or a future king?
Well, I think the whole idea is to treat him as an undergraduate, with all due deference to his position. I think that it's very important that he should be what he wants to be himself, one of the young men of the college.
Charles read archaeology and anthropology, which he later switched to history. After years of grueling physical challenges during his school days, as an undergraduate he turned to the arts, joining the prestigious Footlights Club, a student comedy and theatrical society. The club boasts a list of alumni of comedy greats and stars of the silver screen. Though whether Charles, heir to the throne or not, could ever have carved out the same Hollywood career is up for debate.
I do believe I got a bite. I have a bite. I'm letting out a little slack now. Yes, taking up the strain. This is most exciting, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen anything quite like it before. I think I got quite a large one here. It's really very large indeed.
While the Footlights offered some light relief to university life, the weight of the crown was never far from the prince's mind. 2 years into his studies, he was to be officially invested with the title that he carried for most of his life, the Prince of Wales. The summer of '69. The Beatles are taking their iconic steps across Abbey Road, while Neil Armstrong makes that giant leap for mankind. In northern Wales, though, an English-born prince processes around a medieval castle to be presented by his mother, the Queen, to the Welsh people as their prince.
And the prince is invested with the name, style, title, dignity and honour of Prince of Wales and Earl of Chester, the sword of his earldom. The coronet for sovereignty. The ring for unity between prince and principality. The rod for temporal rule. And a cloak of ermine. The acts of investiture, homage and fealty are complete. Now the Queen takes her son to present him to his people.
For me, it's a way of officially dedicating one's life or part of one's life to Wales, and the Welsh people, after all, wanted it.
But like many of his relationships, Charles's connection with Wales is a complex one, punctuated with protest even to this day, indicating that it's not always the case that all of the Welsh people did or do want him. This was pulled into sharp focus for the prince when he spent 10 weeks as a student at Aberystwyth University to learn Welsh ahead of his investiture. He famously struck up an unlikely friendship with his tutor, staunch Welsh nationalist Dr. Teddy Millward, and was often challenged by his peers over the monarchy's place in Wales.
And I think if I've learnt anything during the last 8 weeks, it's been about Wales in particular, and its problems, and what these people feel about Wales. You see, I think they feel so strongly about Wales as a nation, and it means something to them, and they're depressed by, what might happen to it if they don't try and preserve the language and the culture, which is very unique and special to Wales. And if something is unique and special, I see it's well worth preserving.
So it was a learning curve for the young prince, and it's safe to say there were many more to come. As Charles emerged from university and into adulthood, he turned from the medieval prince to the polo-playing, helicopter-flying, most eligible bachelor in the world. And the question on everyone's lips? Who will be his bride? Dubbed Charlie's Angels by the press, the future king was linked to a number of eligible women over the years. And despite being cast as a ladies' man on newspaper front pages, Charles wrestled internally with the pressure to pick the perfect princess. While pushy parents ushered their daughters into his sights, notably Richard Nixon introducing his daughter Tricia in 1970, Charles was also no stranger to rejection, with the heavy burden of the crown often stifling relationships before they'd begun. From the ladies of English aristocracy to the American it girls and actresses, by the end of the decade, Charles had chosen the one. A shy 19-year-old Lady Diana Spencer was to change everything. The pair first met in 1977 when Diana was 16 and Charles had come to stay at her family home at Althorpe as a guest of her sister. It wasn't until 2 years later that they met again while staying with mutual friends. Diana later revealed privately that they met just 13 more times, and their engagement was announced in February 1981.
Can you find the words to sum up how you feel today, both of you?
Difficult to find the right sort of word, isn't it, really? Just delighted and happy. And I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
And I suppose in love.
Of course. Whatever in love means.
Yes. Well, from us, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Very kind.
The nation and world was enraptured in wedding fever. No time to question what in love means. On the 29th of July that same year, 750 million people across 74 countries tuned in to witness the fairy tale.
Charles Philip Arthur George, wilt thou have this woman to thy wedded wife, to live together after God's ordinance in the holy estate of matrimony? Wilt thou love her, comfort her, honour and keep her in sickness and in health, and forsaking all other keep thee only unto her, so long as ye both shall live?
I will.
Here is the stuff of which fairy tales are made, the prince and princess on their wedding day. But fairy tales usually end at this point with the simple phrase, they lived happily ever after.
It was a public holiday in the UK, with 28.4 million watching from home and 600,000 more lining the streets of London.
This was the moment they had come from all corners of the kingdom to see. A new princess for Wales at the first moment of meeting her people, and the shyness seemed gone, replaced by a genuine wonderment that so many people, from packed pavements to the roofs and windows of tall office blocks around, should want to share her joy.
But the joy would be short-lived, and as those millions of eyes remained upon the prince and princess, it became clear that the happily ever after would not be.